Right now, standing in my backyard, I'm having one of those rare moments of profound clarity usually reserved for near-death experiences or really strong coffee. Except instead of my life flashing before my eyes, it's bubbles. Billions upon billions of shimmering, iridescent bubbles erupting from 4 squat, humming machines that look suspiciously like miniature jet engines salvaged from a Smurf airline. The air, moments ago clear and filled with the mundane sounds of suburban Tuesday afternoon, is now thick with floating spheres, smelling faintly of cheap soap and poor decisions. My decisions. Okay, I mutter, clutching the surprisingly complex remote control doctor Al had enthusiastically pressed into my hand an hour ago. Maybe this was a slight overreaction. The bubbles aren't just floating, they're advancing. A relentless, shimmering tide rolling across my meticulously edged lawn, already cresting over the pristine white picket fence separating my property from hers, Karen Peterson's house, ground zero. Her back door bursts open, and Karen emerges, pointing a trembling finger, her face a mask of rage contorted further by the sheer impossibility of what she's seeing. She opens her mouth, undoubtedly to unleash a torrent of accusations that could strip paint, but the sound is swallowed by the gentle pop-pop fizz of the encroaching bubble wall and the steady hum of the IBS 7000S. Her prize-winning azaleas, the pride of Pleasant Valley Drive, are rapidly disappearing under a blanket of white foam. They look surprisingly festive. A dog starts barking. Mr. Henderson's beagle, probably confused about the sudden snowfall in April. Mrs. Gable's curtains twitch next door. My own pulse is doing a frantic tap dance against my ribs. Did I check the wind direction? Is bubble fluid toxic to prize-winning azaleas? Is generating a localized atmospheric event involving several thousand gallons of soapy water even legal? A hysterical giggle escapes my lips, quickly turning into a full-blown, slightly maniacal laugh. "She wanted better air!" I shout to no one in particular, the sound barely audible over the hum. "She's getting bubbly air!" How did it come to this? How did a series of increasingly bizarre complaints about the fundamental nature of oxygen lead to me weaponizing children's bath time on an industrial scale? Oh, yeah. Right, Karen. It always comes back to Karen. It started, as most suburban conflicts do innocuously enough, a barbecue last summer. I was grilling burgers, gas grill, mind you, none of that smoke-belching charcoal nonsense, when Karen materialized at my fence line like a particularly judgmental garden gnome. "Michael!" Her voice, sharp enough to cut glass, sliced through the sizzle of beef patties. "Michael, that fume!" I looked up, spatula in hand. "Karen, it's propane and hamburgers. You're a good 50 feet away and the breeze is going the other way." She waved a dismissive hand, her nostrils flaring dramatically. "My sensitivities, Michael, they are very delicate. That odor, it's getting into my lungs. I can feel the particulates settling." "Particulates from propane?" I flipped a burger. "I think that's just burger smell, Karen." "It's the air," she insisted, taking a step onto my lawn, because property lines are merely suggestions to Karen. "This neighborhood air, it's just not good anymore. It's stagnant, heavy, I can feel it pressing down." "Lady, the only thing heavy around here is the sigh I let out every time you appear," I thought, but I just nodded politely. "Well, hopefully it clears up soon." That was just the opening salvo. Over the next few months, Karen's atmospheric grievances escalated. My dryer vent, apparently, was releasing toxic lint particles that interfered with her respiratory system. The fresh mulch I put down in the flower beds, a dangerous source of airborne fungal spores. Even the air itself, seemingly existing solely within the confines of my property line, became suspect. One afternoon, she caught me taking out the recycling. "Michael, I was reading online," she announced, brandishing her tablet like a weapon. "Our local air is severely lacking in negative ions, or maybe it's the positive ones we need more of. Whichever ones are the good ones. The air right here," she gestured vaguely towards my garage, "is saturated with the bad ions. It's affecting my chi." I blinked. "Your chi? Karen, I don't know anything about ions. Or chi. I could maybe get an air purifier for inside my house?" I offered, trying desperately to sound helpful and not like I wanted to run screaming down the street. She scoffed. No, that won't help. It's the outside air, Michael, the air that drifts from your yard to mine. It needs to be fresher, more vibrant, like mountain air. You know? Crisp." Crisp? Vibrant? I live in suburban Ohio, Karen, not the Swiss Alps. I tried reason. I pointed out the large oak tree on my lawn. An excellent oxygen producer, thank you very much. I double-checked my dryer vent hose for leaks. There were none. I even, in a moment of profound weakness and desperation, offered to split the cost of an independent air quality test for the area between our houses. The results came back, predictably, showing perfectly normal levels of oxygen, nitrogen, pollen, and miscellaneous suburban atmospheric detritus. Normal for Ohio, anyway. Karen dismissed the report with a flick of her wrist. "Tests! Those tests don't measure the feel, Michael, the energy, the vibrancy. I can tell it's bad air. My sinuses are constantly inflamed." This went on for weeks. Every interaction involved a new air-related complaint. It was too dry. It was too humid. It lacked vitality. I started actively avoiding going outside if I saw her car in the driveway. I considered building a moat. Then came the breaking point. I was mowing the lawn, minding my own business, sweating profusely and contemplating the meaninglessness of existence, when she stormed across the lawn, bypassing the fence entirely this time. "Michael, enough is enough," she declared, planting herself directly in the path of my mower. I killed the engine, sighing internally. "What is it now, Karen?" "My health is deteriorating. I can barely breathe this sludge you call air. My energy healers say my aura is visibly murky. You have to do something about the air quality emanating from your property." I threw my hands up in exasperation. "Do what, Karen? What is it you actually expect me to do? Should I install a giant oxygen tank on the roof? Hire a team of monks to chant purifying mantras at the fence line? Wave palm fronds to generate a breeze?" She ignored my sarcasm, her eyes narrowing with intense focus. "It needs to be cleaner, lighter. It needs to be more bubbly." I froze. "Bubbly?" "Yes, bubbly, like champagne or sparkling water, that feeling, effervescent, you know?" She gestured vaguely again, clearly grasping for a concept she didn't fully understand, but was utterly convinced was the solution to her imaginary problems. "Just make the air better, Michael. Make it bubbly." She spun around and marched back to her house, leaving me standing there, dumbfounded, next to my silent lawnmower. Bubbly air. Cleaner, lighter, bubbly air. The words echoed in my head. It was the most ridiculous, nonsensical demand I had ever heard. And that's when the seed of an idea, a terrible, wonderful, magnificently petty idea, began to sprout. She wanted bubbly air? Okay, Karen. Challenge accepted. You want bubbly air? Oh, I'll give you bubbly air. That evening, fueled by righteous indignation and several beers, I fell down an internet rabbit hole. My initial search for how to make air bubbly yielded results about carbonation and fish tanks. Useless. But then, thinking about Karen's vague champagne analogy, my search terms shifted. Large-scale bubbles. Foam party machine rental. Industrial bubble generator. Bingo. the screen filled with images and videos that spoke directly to the newly awakened chaos gremlin residing in my soul. Machines designed for concerts, festivals, and movie sets, capable of spewing out literal clouds of bubbles, foam cannons that could bury a dance floor in minutes. This wasn't just malicious compliance. This was malicious compliance with pyrotechnics, or rather, sudsotechnics. My first call was to a local place called Barry's Party Supplies and More. The "and more" sounded promising. Barry answered the phone with a level of enthusiasm usually reserved for people waiting in line at the DMV. "Yeah, Barry's," he mumbled, sounding like he was chewing gum, and possibly his own tongue simultaneously. "Hi, Barry," I said, trying to sound like a normal person planning a normal event. "I'm interested in renting some bubble machines for an outdoor atmospheric enhancement project." "Uh-huh, like for a kid's birthday. We got the Bubble Buddy 5000. Makes maybe 50 bubbles a minute. Real cute." "No, Barry, think bigger. Think significantly bigger. Think Old Testament plague, but with bubbles instead of locusts. I need enough bubble output to fundamentally alter the perceived air quality over a standard suburban quarter-acre lot. We're talking volume, Barry. Serious volume." There was a long pause, filled only with the sound of Barry's aggressive chewing. "You want how many bubbles? Dude, what is this for? Like a prank? 'Cause we had this one guy, right? Tried to fill his boss's entire office with foam from our Foam Frenzy 3X. Set off the sprinklers, ruined the computers. Didn't end well, man. Lawsuit." "No, no prank," I assured him quickly. "Strictly therapeutic air improvement for a neighbor. She specifically requested bubbly." Barry sighed heavily. "Look, pal, my machines make bubbles for toddlers. Sounds like you need, I don't know, movie magic stuff. Try Atmospheric FX Solutions downtown. Ask for Dr. Al. He's weird, but he knows foam." Weird was an understatement. Dr. Al of Atmospheric FX Solutions wasn't just weird, he was a foam visionary. His office/workshop was a chaotic wonderland of hoses, tanks, nozzles, and prototypes that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie. Dr. Al himself was a small, wiry man with wild gray hair, goggles perched on his forehead, and an unnerving level of excitement about my project. He wore a slightly stained lab coat over a band t-shirt. "Mr. Johnson, come in, come in!" he exclaimed, practically vibrating with energy. "Barry called ahead, said you had a fascinating challenge involving localized atmospheric amelioration." Yeah," I said, stepping carefully over a tangle of pipes. "My neighbor. She wants better air, fresher, lighter, more bubbly." Dr. Al's eyes lit up behind his goggles. "Ah, a classic request. Improving perceived air quality through targeted saponified microsphere dispersion. Brilliant, utterly brilliant. We're talking Class 3 industrial bubble generators, of course. The IBS 7000 model should suffice, perhaps supplemented with a couple of adapted foam cannons for maximum vertical coverage and drift control." Foam cannons? I pictured Karen being blasted off her porch by a fire hose of suds. Tempting, but probably overkill. "Let's stick with the bubble generators for now. How many would I need for significant coverage?" Dr. Al whipped out a tablet and started sketching complex airflow diagrams. Standard quarter-acre lot. Prevailing wind direction usually southwesterly this time of year. Aiming for maximum saturation of the adjacent property, I'd recommend 4 IBS 7000 units, strategically positioned along the fence line, linked to a central high-capacity fluid reservoir. We wouldn't want you running out mid-session. We can camouflage them behind shrubbery, naturally. Remote activation, variable output controls. He beamed. We can even introduce bio-neutral scents, enhance the therapeutic effect. Pine meadow, ocean breeze, Lavender fields? Just standard unscented bubble smell is fine, thanks, I said, slightly overwhelmed. Then he showed me the quote. I nearly choked. Apparently, blanketing your neighbor's yard in industrial-grade bubbles was not a budget-friendly endeavor. It's a lot, I stammered. Mr. Johnson, Dr. Al said, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder, his eyes gleaming with scientific fervor. You cannot put a price on achieving perfect atmospheric harmony, or, he winked, on truly epic malicious compliance. Trust the science. Trust the bubbles. My desire to wipe the smug look off Karen's face, combined with Dr. Al's infectious and possibly certifiable enthusiasm, overrode my financial common sense. Okay, Dr. Al, I sighed, pulling out my credit card. Let's make some bubbles. The installation took place the following Monday, executed with surprising stealth and precision by Dr. Al and his lab-coated team. They moved like ninjas, albeit ninjas carrying heavy machinery and large drums labeled ultra-foam concentrate. The biggest challenge was Karen, who seemed to have developed a sixth sense for detecting any activity on my property she hadn't personally authorized. Twice, she wandered over while they were running hoses from the central reservoir, disguised poorly as a compost bin, to the IBS 7000 SS hidden behind my rhododendrons. The first time, I frantically pointed towards the roof, shouting, "Look, Karen! Is that a rare migratory downy woodpecker?" sending her scurrying inside for her binoculars. The second time, Dr. Al's quick-thinking assistant accidentally tripped, creating a diversion involving a dropped wrench and feigned injury that bought us enough time to conceal the final connection. Are you absolutely sure these things aren't dangerously powerful? I asked Dr. Al nervously, eyeing the menacing nozzles aimed squarely at Karen's prize-winning azaleas. Dr. Al chuckled, patting one of the machines affectionately. Mr. Johnson, in the world of atmospheric effects, there is no such thing as too powerful. There is only insufficiently awesome. These beauties, he gestured to the 4 IBS 7000S, are calibrated to deliver optimal bubbliness with maximum neighborly impact. Trust the science. I wasn't sure whether to be reassured or terrified, as Dr. Al's team packed up and drove away in their unmarked van, leaving me with 4 hidden bubble cannons and a remote control bristling with buttons. I had a distinct feeling I was about to cross a line, a very foamy, very expensive line. Which brings us back to now. Tuesday afternoon. Bubblegeddon? The initial shock is wearing off, replaced by a strange mix of horror and exhilaration. The bubble wall is now easily 5 feet high and advancing steadily across Karen's lawn. Her screams have become slightly clearer now, a string of invectives involving property damage, chemical warfare, and threats to call every lawyer in the Tri-County area. She's abandoned the garden hose tactic and is now flailing wildly with a broom, which is having about as much effect as trying to sweep the tide back with a feather duster. "It's better air, Karen," I shout again, cupping my hands around my mouth. "Just like you wanted, clean, bubbly. Notice the improved vibrancy?" My phone rings. It's Gary Henderson from next door. Mike?" he says, his voice tight with confusion. "You okay over there, buddy? It looks like your house exploded into a giant bubble bath." "Everything's fine, Gary," I yell cheerfully into the phone. "Just conducting some atmospheric experiments. Tell the beagle not to eat the bubbles." Then, inevitably, the distant sound of sirens grows louder. Of course. Someone called the cops, probably Karen, screaming about being assaulted by soap. I take a deep breath, smooth down my shirt, and try to compose my face into an expression of bewildered innocence. Showtime, Part 2. The black and white cruiser pulls up slowly, navigating the patches of escaped bubbles already drifting into the street. Out step 2 officers, their expressions shifting from routine boredom to utter disbelief as they take in the scene. One is older, with weary eyes, and a name tag reading Miller. The other is younger, sharper, Officer Chen. They look vaguely familiar, like maybe they dealt with my flag carousel incident a few years back. Oh God, please don't let them remember me. Officer Miller approaches cautiously, wiping a stray bubble off his uniform sleeve with a sigh that seems to carry the weight of every ridiculous suburban dispute he's ever witnessed. Okay. Dispatch mentioned a disturbance, he says, his voice carefully neutral. Possibly some kind of chemical spill? Sir, can you perhaps explain why your property appears to be lactating? Lactating? No, officer, I say, injecting maximum sincerity into my voice. There's no disturbance here, no spill. This is simply an advanced atmospheric dispersion system. I'm improving the local air quality. I gesture towards the humming machines. My neighbor, Mrs. Peterson over there, I point to Karen, who has now retreated to her porch and resembles a very angry, very damp, abominable snowman. Specifically requested better, bubbly air for therapeutic reasons. I'm just fulfilling her request. Officer Chen adjusts his cap, trying very hard not to smile. Bubbly air? He mutters to Miller. Is that technically a thing? Karen, overhearing me, lets out another shriek, muffled by the layer of foam clinging to her face. He's trying to soap me, officers. It's assault. Assault with bubbles. Look at my azaleas. Officer Miller pinches the bridge of his nose. Ma'am, please try to calm down, sir. He turns back to me, his eyes pleading for a rational explanation he clearly knows isn't coming. Is there a city ordinance against excessive bubble generation? He glances at Chen, who just shrugs helplessly. Look, Miller continues, his voice strained. Just try to keep the bubbles on your own property, okay? And maybe turn it down a notch? Or 10? Absolutely, officer, I say brightly. Safety first. Just trying to be a good neighbor. They exchange another look of profound weariness, give Karen a wide berth, and retreat to their cruiser, shaking their heads. As they drive away, I see Officer Chen glance back, a definite smirk playing on his lips this time. Victory? Sort of. At least I'm not in handcuffs. Yet. Karen glares daggers at me from her bubble-encrusted porch. I give her a cheerful wave and turn down the bubble output slightly using the remote. Just a notch. The next morning I discover my first act of sabotage. The main power cord to the central reservoir has been unplugged. Child's play. I plug it back in. But Karen isn't one to give up easily. Later that day, the HOA president, Mr. Henderson, no relation to Gary, unfortunately, arrives at my door, looking flustered and holding a crumpled piece of paper. Mr. Johnson, he begins, puffing slightly, I've received a highly unusual complaint from Mrs. Peterson. Something about aggressive bubbles? Ah, Mr. Henderson, just improving the air quality, as requested by Mrs. Peterson herself, I say smoothly. Yes, well, she seems to feel the improvement is perhaps excessive, and potentially damaging to her shrubbery. There's even a petition circulating. He waves the crumpled paper. Stop the Suds menace, it says. A menace? It's just bubbles. Good clean fun. He doesn't look convinced. The board will have to review the bylaws regarding atmospheric alterations. In the meantime, perhaps you could moderate the bubbliness? Consider it moderated, I assure him. As soon as he leaves, I call Dr. Al. Dr. Al, Phase 2, I announce. The subject mentioned wanting mountain air. Can we add a pine scent? Dr. Al sounds delighted. Excellent modification, Mr. Johnson. Pine scent evokes feelings of cleanliness, altitude, invigoration, a perfect psychological countermaneuver. While we're at it, shall we add a subtle blue coloring agent to the fluid for that authentic big sky visual appeal? Blue bubbles? I hesitate for only a second. Sure, why not? Let's go full Smurf. The next bubble session is glorious. Waves of pale blue, pine-scented bubbles drift lazily towards Karen's house. It looks like a gender reveal party gone horribly wrong. Karen's reaction is immediate and volcanic, more screaming, more frantic calls, presumably to the HOA, the police, the EPA, and possibly NATO. That evening, I find one of the IBS 7000S has been tampered with. Someone jammed a garden gnome into the nozzle. Seriously. I remove the gnome, Gary Henderson's missing one, I suspect, and decide it's time for countermeasures. The next day, I install discrete security cameras aimed directly at the bubble machines. Let's see her try gnome sabotage again. The inevitable climax arrives during the hastily convened emergency HOA board meeting, held ill-advisedly on Mr. Henderson's front lawn, directly adjacent to mine. Karen insisted on the location, wanting the board to witness the bubble terror firsthand. I, naturally, decide this is the perfect time for a demonstration of the newly enhanced blue, pine-scented system. Just as Mr. Henderson clears his throat to begin the proceedings, I hit the max output button on my remote. The four IBS 7000S roar to life. A gentle breeze, as if on cue, picks up, carrying the burgeoning cloud of blue foam directly towards the assembled quorum. The scene descends into pure, unadulterated slapstick. Mr. Henderson disappears behind a wave of blue. Board members flail, sputtering. Karen shrieks, batting uselessly at the clinging, pine-scented suds. "Mr. Johnson!" Henderson bellows, his voice muffled by foam. "This is glub. Highly irregular." "My lungs!" Karen gasps dramatically. "Pine needles. I'm inhaling." Glub glub. "Smurfs." "Just demonstrating the air improvement system," I call out cheerfully from the safety of my own relatively bubble-free driveway. Notice the invigorating scent. Very alpine. Wouldn't you agree? Predictably, the sirens arrive again. This time, it's not just Miller and Chen. There's another cruiser, plus a van labeled City Code Enforcement, and, inexplicably, a fire truck rolling slowly down the street, lights flashing. Apparently, Karen's 911 call involved keywords like hazardous materials and suffocating foam. Officer Miller strides towards me, his face grim. He looks less weary now, more genuinely angry. Bubbles cling to his hat like bizarre decorations. "Miller, again! We talked about keeping this contained. This is officially a public safety hazard. We've got bubbles drifting into traffic. The fire department thought it was a chemical foam leak." A stern-looking man with a clipboard steps forward. "Code enforcement. Sir, I'm citing you under Municipal Code 11.B, paragraph 6. Operation of non-essential atmospheric alteration devices resulting in cross-property particulate drift." He starts writing furiously. And 14. G. Creation of a public nuisance via excessive saponification. "They're essential!" I protest weakly. "For the air! She asked for bubbly!" "Son," says the fire captain, walking over and wiping blue foam off his jacket. "You're lucky this stuff isn't flammable. Shut it down, now." The party, it seems, is over. Faced with multiple citations, potential lawsuits, and the very real possibility of the fire department confiscating Dr. Al's beloved IBS 7000 OAS, I sigh and hit the off button on the remote. The humming dies down. The last few waves of blue bubbles drift away, popping gently on the pavement. Silence descends, broken only by the sound of Karen sputtering and Mr. Henderson trying to scrape foam off his suit jacket. In the end, I agree to dismantle the bubble machines immediately. The city agrees to reduce the fines if I comply without argument. The HOA agrees to table the atmospheric alterations bylaw discussion indefinitely. And Karen, looking exhausted, slightly blue-tinted, and utterly defeated by the sheer absurdity of it all, actually mumbles something that sounds suspiciously like, "The pine scent was rather nice, though." I pretend not to hear her. An uneasy, bubble-free peace settles over Pleasant Valley Drive. Dr. Al is disappointed but philosophical when he retrieves his machines. "A noble experiment, Mr. Johnson. We pushed the boundaries of suburban atmospheric science. Perhaps the world wasn't ready for therapeutic bubbliness." He tries to interest me in a home fog machine system, creates a lovely morning mist effect, but I politely decline. So now my backyard is quiet again. The rhododendrons look slightly traumatized. The air is just air. Normal, boring, non-bubbly Ohio air. I kept one small drum of the ultra-foam concentrate in the garage, though. Just in case. Was it worth it? The fines weren't insignificant. Dr. Al's bill could have funded a small car. I'm pretty sure I'm on every watch list the HOA and City Hall maintain. But honestly, seeing the look on Karen's face when that first wave of blue, pine-scented bubbles washed over her prize-winning azaleas, watching the entire HOA board flounder like confused seals in a sea of foam, some things are just priceless. Karen demanded better air. For one glorious, chaotic, incredibly stupid week, she got the bubbliest damn air on the planet. And strangely enough, she hasn't complained about my dryer vent, my mulch, or the general vibrancy level of the local oxygen even once since the great bubble war of Pleasant Valley Drive. Maybe all it took was a near-death experience by industrial-scale bubble bath. Or maybe she's just scared of what I'll think of next. Either way, I'm calling it a win.